Hey everyone, I hope you guys had a great weekend. Today we're just going to work on some more division examples. There are 20. Oh, there's only 12. So we're going to start with these. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is divide 3,195 by 9. 9 doesn't go into 3, so we move over to the next number and see how many times 9 goes into 31. So 9 times 3 is the closest we can get to 31 without going over. And 3 times 9 is 27. So then we subtract 27 from 31. And 31 minus 27 is 4. Okay, and then 9. So now we need to see how many times 9 goes into 49 with our. And the closest we can get is 9 times 5. 9 times 5 is 45. And now we're going to subtract again. So we have 49 minus 45 is 4. And then we're going to bring down the 5. So now we have how many times 9 goes into 45 without going up, and that is 5. 9 times 5 is 45. So we're going to subtract those, and we have a remainder of 0. Our next one is we're going to divide 1,998 divided by 9. 9 doesn't go into 1, so we're going to move over and see how many times 9 goes into 19 without going over. That's going to be 2. 9 times 18. 19 minus 18 is 1. And then we're going to bring down the 9. Again, we're going to see how many times 9 goes into 19 without going over. That's going to be 2. 2 times 9 is 18. We're going to do 19 minus 18 is 1. And then bring down the 8. 18 divided by 9 is 2. 2 times 9 is 18. And 18 minus 18 is 0. Okay, on to our next one. We have 4,665 divided by 5. So 9 doesn't go into 4, so we're going to move over and see how many times 5 goes into 46 without going over. And that's going to be 9. 9 times 5 is 45. So now we're going to subtract 46 minus 45 is 1. And we're going to bring down our 6. So now we have 16. So we need to see how many times 5 goes into 16 without going over. It's going to be 3. 3 times 5 is 15. So now we're going to have 16 minus 15. 16 minus 15 is 1. We're going to bring down our 5. We have to figure out how many times 5 goes into 15 without going over. It's going to be 3. 3 times 5 is 15. And 15 minus 15 is 0. So our answer is 933. Next one, we have 1,414 divided by 5. See how many times 5 goes into 14? It's going to be 2 times without going over. 2 times 5 is 10. We're going to subtract 14 minus 10, which is 4. And then we're going to bring down the 1. Now we're going to see how many times 5 goes into 41 without going over. That is 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. And we're going to subtract again. 41 minus 40 is 1. And then we're going to bring down the 4. Now we're going to see how many times 5 goes into 14 without going over. Again, that's 2. 2 times 5 is 10. So we're going to subtract 14 minus 10 is 4. We don't have any other numbers to bring down, so we're going to make this a remainder 4. So our answer is 282 remainder 4. Our next one, we have 2,385 divided by 8. We need to figure out how many times 8 goes into 23 without going over. That's going to be 2. 2 times 8 is 16. Okay, now we're going to subtract 23 minus 16, which is 7. And we're going to bring down the 8. Now we need to see how many times 8 goes into 78 without going over. That's going to be 9. 9 times 8 is 72. And we're going to subtract. 78 minus 72 is 6. And then we're going to bring down the 5. Now we need to see how many times 8 goes into 65 without going over. It's going to be 8. 8 times 8 is 64. And we're going to subtract. 65 minus 64 is 1. We don't have any numbers to bring down, so our answer is going to be 298 remainder 1. Moving on to our next one, we have 735 divided by 7. So we look at our first number of 7, and 7 does go into 7 one time. 1 times 7 is 7. So that's, and we're going to bring down the 3. Now this is kind of tricky because now we're only left with 3 and we can't make 7 go into 3. So we're going to put a 0 up here because 7 times 0 is the biggest number we can multiply 7 by without going over 3. 7 times 0 is 0. So we're going to subtract 3 from 0, or 0 from 3, which is 3. And then we're going to bring down the 5. Now we're going to see how many times 7 goes into 35 without going over. And 7 times 5 will give us 35. So our answer is 105. Okay. Our next one, we have 3,442 divided by 6. 6 doesn't go into 3, so we're going to move over and see how many times 6 goes into 34 without going over. It's going to be 5 times. 5 times 6 is 30. Now we have 34 minus 30, which is 4. And we're going to bring down our other 4. So now we need to see how many times 6 goes into 44 without going over. That's going to be 7 times. 7 times 6 is 42. Okay, so now we have 44 minus 42, which gives us 2. And we're going to bring down our other 2. So we need to see how many times 6 goes into 22 without going over. That's going to be 3 times. 3 times 6 is 18. And 22 minus 18, it's going to give us 4. So we don't have any other numbers to bring down. So this is going to be remainder 4. So our answer is 573, remainder 4. Okay, next we have 4,731 divided by 7. 7 doesn't go into 4, so we're going to move over and see how many times 7 goes into 47 without going over. That's going to be 6 times. 6 times 7 is 42. So we're going to subtract 47 minus 42 gives us 5. And we're going to bring down the 3. Now we need to see how many times 7 goes into 53 without going over. That's going to be 7 times. 7 times 7 is 49. And we're going to subtract 53 minus 49 is 4. And we're going to bring down the 1. Now we need to see how many times 7 goes into 41 without going over. That is going to be 5. 5 times 7 is 35. And we're going to subtract 41 minus 35 leaves us 6. So our answer is 675, remainder 6. Okay, our next one, we have 5,130 divided by 9. 9 doesn't go into 5, so we move over to 51. 9 times 5 is as close to 51 as we can get without going over. 5 is 45. So we have 51 minus 45 is 6. And then we're going to bring down the 3. Now we're left with 63 divided by 9. So we have to figure out how many 9 times what gets us as close to 63 without going over. That's going to be 7. 7 times 9 is 63. So we're going to subtract, and that leaves us with 0. But we're not done yet. We still have to bring down this other 0. So now we have to figure out 9 times what gets us as close to 0 without going over. So that's going to be 0, because 0 times 9 is 0. We're going to do 0 minus 0, and that gives us 0. So our answer is 570. Our next one, we have 1,725 divided by 2. 2 doesn't go into 1. And see how many times 2 goes into 17 without going over? It's going to be 8. 8 times 2 is 16. And 17 minus 16 is 1. We're going to bring down our 2. Now we need to see how many times 2 goes into 12 without going over. That is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. Twelve minus 12 is 0, but we still need to bring down our 5 now. So now we need to see 2 times what gets us close to 5 without going over. That is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And that leaves us with 5 minus 4, which is 1. So our answer is 862, remainder 1. Okay. Now we have 1,000 divided by 5. 5 doesn't go into 1, so we move over, and we see how many times 5 goes into 10. It's going to be 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 minus 10 is 0. And then we have to bring down our other 0. This is one of those other tricky ones where we're back to 0. So 5 times what gets us as close to 0 without going over? 0. 0 times 5 is 0. We're going to subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. And we still have another 0 left, so we have to bring this 0 down again, and we're going to do it again. 5 times what gets us close to 0 without going over? It's going to be 0. 0 times 5 is 0. And we're going to subtract. So our answer is 200. And our last one we have planned, we have 867 divided by 7. See how many times 7 goes into 8 without going over? That's going to be 1. 1 times 7 is 7. So we're going to do 8 minus 7. 8 minus 7 is 1. We're going to bring down the 6. Now we need to see how many times 7 goes into 16 without going over. It's going to be 2. 2 times 7 is 14. We have 16 minus 14. 16 minus 14 is 2. And then we're going to bring down the 7. So we have to see how many times 7 goes into 27 without going over. That's going to be 3 times. 3 times 7 is 21. And we're going to subtract. 27 minus 21 is 6. We don't have any numbers left, so we're going to make this a remainder of 6. So our answer is 123 remainder 6. So that is everything I have planned for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. If I don't hear from you, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you all next week.